Hi, I'm Esther Jacobs, and I don't exist.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have the privilege this morning to have with us Esther Jacobs. She has an amazing life story. One of her nicknames is No Excuses Lady. I could spend hours talking about this, but I would, without further ado, leave her to tell your story towards you. My name is Thomas Friedhoff. I will be your session host for today. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. We'll try to answer them as quickly as possible as we can, either directly by Esther or I will moderate the session. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And without further ado, I give the floor to Esther.
Thank you. Good morning in the Netherlands and good something else somewhere else in the world. I'm Esther Jacobs and I don't exist. And that may sound weird because I'm actually here, I do exist, but according to the system, I don't exist. And it's an interesting story. I'll share it with you. I got fired from my home country for traveling too much. But the most important lesson of this story is that no matter what external circumstances you're in, no matter how big your challenges are, if you are in control, you can turn any situation into an opportunity. And often it's an art to see opportunities where others don't see them. And then the next thing is, of course, to seize those opportunities, to actually do something with them. And I've done that in many, many different occasions, many, many different challenges in my life. And I think by just doing some storytelling, by sharing some stories, you may find some inspiration to do that for difficult situations in your life. And I want to assure you there's always opportunities. It's just a different way of seeing them. So back to my story. I've been a speaker for many years. I've done over 1,000 keynote speeches. I've written about 30 books. I have a pretty good life. I travel a lot. I've visited over 100 countries, and I was a resident of the Netherlands. And I even got knighted by the Dutch Queen for a charity collection I did. I collected 16 million euro for charities when the euro was introduced. I was named an honorary citizen of the city that I lived. And if you think that means something, it doesn't, because one day, about 6 years ago, I got to the city hall to renew my passport. And instead of saying, "Hello, Esther, nice that you're here, here's your new passport," they told me, "No, we cannot renew your passport because you don't live here anymore." And I was like, that must be a mistake, right? That must be something that we can set straight by giving the facts. But they didn't even want to talk to me. They didn't allow me to see my file. And I said, "But if you show me what's wrong, I can explain it." They said, "No, it's privacy sensitive." And I was like, it's my privacy. Anyway, long story short, it turns out that to be registered in a house in the Netherlands, even if it's your own house, you need to at least sleep there 4 months a year. I was traveling so much that I didn't sleep in my own house 4 months a year. I tried to explain that I didn't live anywhere else. I was paying taxes. I didn't get any social security or anything. I wasn't disadvantaging anybody, but they said, no, rules are rules. And it even got so far that the ministers had a meeting on my case. And they decided, those rules, those laws are not meant for people like Esther Jacobs. But technically speaking, the city has acted, according to the rules. So I got deregistered from my own house. I lost my parking permit, my voting rights, my pension rights, my health insurance. My company got deregistered from the Chamber of Commerce. And because of that, I lost my phone plan. My bank accounts got closed. So piece by piece, my whole life collapsed like a game of dominoes. There was only one institution in the Netherlands who said and who kept saying, "Miss Jacobs, to us you are and will always be a cherished citizen of the Netherlands." And that was the tax service. Yes. They still wanted me to pay taxes, even though I didn't have any rights. So I couldn't receive any social security that I was paying for. I got caught between two rules, the rights and the privileges. And I didn't have the privileges, but I did have the obligations of paying taxes. So I got into a big problem. And the only thing I wanted in the beginning was everything to go back to the way it was. I wanted to be back in my comfort zone where I knew, about my life, about insurance, everything was taken care of, even though it didn't fit because I was traveling so much. In the meantime, while I was being frustrated and felt like a victim and couldn't do anything, I was giving presentations as the no excuses lady. And I was saying, any situation, you can turn it around, look for the opportunities. On a stage, I could say that, but then back home, I was frustrated and feeling like a victim and really fighting to go back to the way it was. Until one day, the coin dropped and I thought, okay, I have to apply my own principles. How can I turn this situation around? And I always share, and I found out that it's really, really true many times. When you're in the shit, instead of trying to get out of the shit as soon as possible, you have to dive into the shit and look for the present. There's always a gift in the middle of the shit. So I did just that. I looked at my situation. I wasn't registered. I didn't have any rights. I was caught in between. I was trying to get back. That would never work. And I thought, what if I try to get out of the system? So I rented out my house, I sold my car, I found health insurance somewhere else in another country, I opened bank accounts somewhere else. I found a solution for everything. And I said, okay, now I don't live in the Netherlands anymore, like you said. And I didn't live anywhere else. So all of a sudden, I didn't exist. And a lot of people have fears of not being registered. They say, but you have to be registered. And of course, it makes life a lot easier. But still, the sun comes up every day and, I eat, I drink, I play, I travel, I have time with friends, I work, the sun sets, I go to sleep, and there's a new day the next day. Really, life goes on, even if everybody says, but it's not possible. And what I do now is I help other people who are caught in the system or who feel like they don't belong to claim their autonomy, and not necessarily by avoiding taxes, but by finding a system that matches their international life. And more there are solutions, like in countries like Estonia, where they offer opportunities to set up a company to manage everything remotely. But my talk is not about location independent living, which is another topic that I love to talk about. It's about these opportunities, seeing and seizing opportunities. In these times of Corona, for example, a lot of people feel like there's no opportunities. And I disagree. I know life is very difficult and a lot of people are in trouble. But usually when you're in trouble, you keep looking at the point where the trouble started and you want to get back to the way things were. But there's also a lot of companies and people who see and seize opportunities in these times. And I once created a video for refugees. We have a big problem in the world with refugees who are waiting for a status. They're not allowed to work, they're not allowed to do anything. And the same for being in the Corona crisis, losing your job, being at home, not being able to do what you used to do. Online, there are so many opportunities. You can follow courses on YouTube. You can, if you take 5 classes in WordPress creation, then you're not an expert, but you know just a little bit more than most other people. And then you can help other people with their WordPress. The same for graphic design, the same for video editing. There is a demand for these things. And if you make sure that you know just a little bit more than somebody else, you can help them. And sometimes these opportunities are created without even realizing that they're opportunities. I have another story I'd like to share. One day I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw an offer for a cruise, a transatlantic cruise. Because in the summer, the cruise ships are in the Mediterranean. In the winter, they're in the Caribbean and they have to make this crossing. And the cruise company thought that nobody would want to make this crossing because there's no stops. So they offered this crossing, 9 days, private cabin, everything included, food, entertainment, whatever, from Spain to Brazil for only 150 euros. And I saw this and I thought, hey, that's interesting. Maybe I want to do it. But then I thought, I'm on a cruise ship. What am I going to do on a cruise ship? But it stayed in the back of my mind. And this is how inspiration works. You often connect things that are not related and then something new exists. So I kept it in the back of my mind. At the same time, I was organizing a writing retreat in Mallorca. I do that a few times a year. I help people to write their book in just 1 week. And in order to do that, I rent a villa, I organize catering, I help them with their travel arrangements. Then I have a workshop program. I give a different workshop every day. I help them with their books, and I'm like a tour guide. This time we leave for lunch. We're going to this restaurant. Don't get lost. Be on time. So I'm very, very busy, and I have to pay and organize everything. And then those two ideas got together. What if I organized my next retreat on this cruise ship? Then everything is taken care of, accommodation, food, entertainment, and people don't get lost because they're on a boat. And I just say every day between 9 and 10 in the morning, I give a workshop about a certain topic. But of course, I'm not going to organize that if I don't know if people are interested. So I posted it on Facebook. What if I would do this cruise 9 days from Spain to Brazil with a different workshop every day, and it would cost a few €100? Who would be interested? To my surprise, there were like 60 people saying, me. So I organized it. I made a payment page, and 15 people actually signed up. So we did the crossing. It was wonderful. It was great. It was a very special experience. When we got to Brazil, everybody was so enthusiastic that I thought, hey, I could stay in South America for the winter and do the cruise back with the same concept. So I posted it again on Facebook. Again, I had 15 people who wanted to join. And then I had to spend the winter in South America, which was not a very bad thing. So I did the crossing back as well. And there's a special story that is another opportunity that I didn't see at that time. But while I was spending the winter in South America, I ended up in Buenos Aires, Argentina. What do people do in Buenos Aires, Argentina? They dance tango. And I wanted to learn something new. I'm not a dancer. I'm not physical at all. I'm a very intellectual person. So I felt very much out of my comfort zone. But I had time. Do what the locals do, learn something new. So I found a private tango teacher online. We met and I did 3 weeks of daily classes. So I could dance a tiny little bit of tango, but I felt so uncomfortable. It was really not my thing. But I decided I want to learn this. It's good to do something physical, to move your body, to be out of your head, to not be in control, but to follow. So on the cruise ship back, first thing I did, I was looking for somebody from Argentina to dance tango with. I found somebody, and we, at a quiet moment in one of the bars, we started dancing just to see what it would be like. And people came to watch, and they said, can you teach us as well? I'm like, I can't teach. I've only been dancing for 3 weeks. And they said, well, you know a little bit more than we do, so why don't you teach us what you know? It turned out I gave a tango class every day for 2 weeks during this crossing. And it's ridiculous, really, knowing that I really couldn't dance, but people wanted to learn, and I was there and I could teach them what I knew. So I did. Then I came back to the Netherlands and I wanted to share this experience that I had. So I told all my friends, I was going to invite my tango teachers, and I told them about my experience, and they wanted to learn it too. They wanted to have this experience. So I organized workshops for my tango teachers. So they came to Holland, they did these workshops. People were really, really happy, and they've already been back to Holland 3 times, and they're traveling a lot now. And because I wasn't into tango, I didn't know what tango teachers charged in the Netherlands. So I charged for them, for the workshop, a price that I compared to the experience. So I think I charged 100 or 150 euros, and people paid that. Only later I found out that normally tango teachers from Argentina, from all over the world, only charge 15 euros for a session. Because I didn't know that, I created a whole new niche, a whole new business. If I would have looked at what was already there, and if I would have approached the people that already knew about tango, I would have had to do the same as everybody else. But I presented a new concept to new people, and I could put a price on it that was comparable to the experience, to the added value it gave to them. So this also showed me that don't try to fit in. If you see an opportunity, and it doesn't have to be an opportunity to make money, it can be an opportunity to do something that you love, to grow. And if you share that and other people are interested, then that's the moment when you start organizing things. I meet too many people who have a good idea, or they think it's a good idea, and they write a business plan. They commit to renting a space, an office or retreat space, to hiring people. And only when they have everything planned, they start promoting it. And then it turns out people don't like it, or they don't like the price or the location or whatever. And they've done all this work for nothing. What if we use social media as a test ground? Once you have an idea, you present it with all your passion and enthusiasm. You create a group of people who like your idea. Then you start putting out ideas. We could organize a retreat. I could organize a workshop. What do you think about this date? What do you think about this topic? What do you think about this price? And a small percentage of that group will say yes. And only then you organize your event. That's how I organize my events. They started with questions from people. Hey, Esther, you've written so many books. Can you help me write my book? So I organize a workshop of like one afternoon, 3 hours about writing your book. Hey, Esther, you are living your dream. Can you help me to live my dream? So I organized workshops. What is your dream? Live your dream. Hey, Esther, you're living as a location independent digital nomad. Can you teach me how to be a location independent entrepreneur? Sure, I'll organize a workshop. And if you pay attention to what is happening around you, and this is getting to the point of seeing and seizing opportunities, if you pay attention, you will see things that other people don't see. You will hear questions that normally you don't hear them anymore. Because I know that you are good at something. You have an added value, and probably you don't see it because to you it looks like normal and natural. Well, this is so easy, it couldn't mean anything for other people. But what you are good at, other people are not good at. And that's why they come to you for advice, for consultancy, for coaching, for your skills, your services. So the first thing is to become aware of your environment. What are the what are the frequently asked questions that you always get? Are they about your job? Are they about a certain skill? Are they about the problems people have? What if you would answer those frequently asked questions? It doesn't have to be about business. Maybe you live in a camper van and people are interested in living in a camper van. Maybe you live off-grid and people are interested in that. Maybe you're good at video editing or creating digital art. There's always people who are interested in what you do. And if they're not in your immediate environment, then look for them in a different environment or look for them online. My biggest learning is that you never have to change yourself. You never have to change who you are. You don't have to change your personality. If it doesn't fit in the current context, just look for another context where it is appreciated. It's just a matter of switching perspectives. And that's where the opportunities are. So the first thing is to see them, to recognize them for opportunities. And often they're disguised as challenges. The second thing is to seize them. If you see an opportunity, do something, anything, talk about it, create something, work together with somebody, but do something. Don't wait until it's happened. Don't wait until somebody else seizes your opportunity or wait until the opportunity disappears and they say, oh, it would have been nice if I could have done something. So the first thing is recognizing them. The second is acting on them. We have a few minutes left, so if you have questions, please let me know. And maybe I can help you to see and seize opportunities. And again, this is not about money. It's about following your heart, following your passion. Because when you do that, you radiate a certain energy that attracts other people, and it attracts opportunities. When you're alive, when you shine your light, you attract light, you attract other things, and you create a certain flow where you no longer need to be in control, but like the universe takes over. This sounds very spiritual, but it actually feels like that. So let me see if there's any questions. I don't see any questions. So either this has been very clear, or nobody's watching, or it's too complicated and you don't even know what to ask. But I hope that my story will plant some seed of inspiration, that whatever situation you're in, don't be dependent, don't be waiting, don't think it's not possible. There's always a possibility. And if you don't find it, it just means you have to look differently. Look from a different perspective. Look where nobody else is looking. Dive into this shit that you may be in and find the gift that's always hidden in the shit. No excuses. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your talk, Esther. We have some questions coming in.
Hans has a question. How do people become nomads? And he says nomads, K-N-O-W. That's a very nice one, Hans. Step by step. I do have some, step by step is first you have to either know where you're going or know what you want to leave. It's either you're moving away from something or you're moving towards something. So if you're not happy with your current situation, it's a good idea to think about what you do want instead of being led by what you don't want. That's the first tip. Second is don't just go away somewhere because you want to avoid taxes, or you want to avoid routine, or you don't want to work. You will always have to work. As a location independent entrepreneur, you have to work hard. You are responsible for everything, your successes and your failures. So if you just want to hide from the world and avoid responsibility, you bring yourself everywhere you go. And I know that because I've tried. So the most important thing is to get to know yourself really well. How do you focus? How do you work best? What do you like? What do you don't like? What are you good at? What is your added value? And if you know these things, you can also create your ideal life where you are right now. And if you decide you want to travel, you can travel, but you always take yourself with you. I have a lot of information about location independent living. I wrote a book about it, Digital Nomads, How to Live, Work and Play Around the World. I give a digital nomad workshop online. Actually, the next one is July 29th. But if you go to my website, you'll see the dates and topics of my workshops. I also give a workshop how to turn anything into a business, and a lot of other things that may help you to see and seize those opportunities and act on it. My website is estherjacobs.info. You'll find a lot of free information, and there's some information about workshops, courses, retreats, coachings, and things like that. I hope to be able to help you live your dream life. And thanks, Hans, for your question. Another question, how important is learning about serendipity? Serendipity is magic. It's, you can call it the universe, flow. It's things happening at the right moment, things coinciding. And once you are open to it, you'll recognize it everywhere. And one thing that I've seen is often people turn on the inspiration switch when they go to a seminar like this, when they go to a conference, when they say, now I'm going to listen to an inspirational podcast. Now I'm going to do this course. Then they open this filter of inspiration. But you can turn this on anytime. And you will see inspiration in your daily walk to work, in your daily or your weekly coffee with your parents or neighbors. Things that have become a routine. If you do them with this inspiration filter open, you will see completely different things. So I would like to challenge everybody to do something different, to take a different route to work, to read a different website or newspaper or blog, to have lunch with somebody that you don't know yet, maybe a cousin, maybe a neighbor, maybe the mailman. It doesn't matter. Have different talks with different people. Open your inspiration filter every day, and you'll be surprised what you discover about yourself, about others, and about the world around you. And I think this is the most important thing, Hans. It's a very good question, because if you wait for something to happen, you may be waiting for a long time. If you learn to look at what is already happening around you, there'll be so many opportunities and challenges and nice things to experience that you don't have to wait. It's already there. It's already inside you. It's already around you, and you just need to connect those two.
Well, thanks for your talk, Esther. I would be very curious to learn. You talk a lot about serendipity, and we know, for example, that Steve Jobs was a big believer in serendipity, and he even planned his buildings, his office buildings at Apple, to be designed that way. What would you describe as the most spontaneous, serendipitous moment who you otherwise would never have met through practicing what you preach, basically?
Well, I think this example about the cruise and spending the winter in South America is a very good example, because I ended up in Brazil and I wanted to stay in Brazil, but I thought it was too hot in Brazil and I was looking for somewhere a little bit cooler. So I thought if I travel south, it will be cooler. And the next thing on the map was Buenos Aires. And I just went there with no expectations, nothing. And I found this tango teacher. And not only did he start me on my journey of tango, which is already 3 years now, but he also became a very good friend. And because of me, he now travels all over the world to introduce people to tango. And because of him, I went on a journey of discovering my femininity, my more softer side of following, not always being in control, stepping into my discomfort, learning something new, being softer, the more the feminine energy. I was used to using my masculine energy. Go, get it, action, do it, pushing. And this was more soft and flowing and letting things happen, go with the flow. And I'm still on that journey, but I think this has been a very important meeting in my life that I could have never thought. Who would have thought? I saw on Facebook about a cruise, that I would actually do this cruise, that it would be a success, that I would be doing 2 cruises, spending the winter in South America, learning tango, finding this tango teacher, having this connection with him, and this starting a journey that I'm now sharing with other people about balancing your feminine and masculine energy, and being more in the flow instead of pushing and making things happen.
So you mentioned a couple of things. You talk about masculine and feminine energy. What would your tip be to our male audience? How would they use those energies? And making a link to our green deal stage, which we have the coming 3 days. We have a lot of interesting speakers on sustainability, on sustainable startups, which can make it a change. Travel is changing as well. Looking at current day electric mobility, smart mobility, autonomous mobility, what would be your current dream journey by sustainable mobility? And for example, how would you envision that happening in 5 years or 10 years from now?
That's a lot of questions. First, for the female audience, interestingly enough, I find that strong women use mostly their male energy. And I think it's time that we allow ourselves this feminine energy as well, this softness. And for the male audience, we know that you are strong, and we know that you can achieve things, and we know that you want to be strong for us, for others. But if you allow your emotional side as well and your softness, then there is an opportunity to connect to other men, to women, to, I don't think male or female matters too much, but to other beings. And if each of us has a being that is more or less balanced, and we know we have this action side and we know we have this softer side, we can use it whenever it's necessary. And especially for these plans for a better world, I know there's a lot of people with great ideas, but they don't have power to put it into the world. And there's people with a lot of power, but they're not connected to their inner being to find the plans and the actions that really make a difference. And I think if those people connect and those two sides connect, then you have both the ideas and the power to put them into the world, and we can do magical things. And the third thing you ask about travel, personally, I've always traveled all over the world, and I feel that it's getting smaller. Like this summer, instead of flying all over the place, I decided to stay in Europe. I'm spending more time in the Netherlands. And I feel that when I travel, I'm exploring to see if I can go by train. There are still flights, I will still fly, but I feel like I'm toning it down. It's also a natural thing. I'm not afraid of flying. I'm not afraid of the corona thing. It's just, I feel that the window is kind of getting smaller, and there's so many things that you can do right now, right here. You don't have to be somewhere else. And if you have to be somewhere else, you want to be somewhere else, try to travel slow. I think it's better for ourselves and it's better for the planet, and it gives new experiences like I was talking about. It's inspiration filter turned on. It can be very interesting to stay longer in one place and to make smaller movements. So I'm really curious to find out what it will mean for me in the next few months or years.
Well, maybe as a pro tip, a friend of mine, we always, when you think about electric cars, you think about the long range electric cars, and they're becoming more and more long range electric cars. And a lot of people think that with a smaller first generation electric cars, which have also improved, for example, a Nissan Leaf, that you can't travel around Europe. And he set himself a challenge together with his girlfriend. And they said, well, we want to see France, but why would we drive to the most southern part of France instead of just making sort of micro journeys, sort of what you touch upon, and drive to Belgium, spend a couple of days there, drive to Paris, see the Eiffel Tower, have a romantic getaway, and then all kinds of little wineries or small towns which you normally wouldn't visit and would clog up with millions of other people, perhaps in Corona times also not very sensible. So if you take this philosophy, what would your little micro journeys, for example, with a small electric car, or if full, and later on, say the 2025 world, with a fully autonomous electric vehicle, how would you travel around Europe, and what would be your ideal dream travel?
Well, personally, I feel drawn towards train journeys. I don't know why. It's something new. Also, while you're traveling, you can still work. Well, probably in the new electric cars as well. They self-navigate, but somehow I don't know. It's nice to use those train tracks that are already there. Trains have something nostalgic. It's comfortable. Stations have something special. So I know there is going to be a lot of new ways to travel in the future, but right now I feel drawn towards trains. I don't know why. I'm surprised by it. I haven't thought about it yet. So this is the first time I actually mention it, but I think I need to be in a train.
And continuing on that, for example, there's now from the Netherlands, there's more connections to the UK, where a lot of people perceive that if they take a flight that from Amsterdam to London, that's quicker. But if you actually, NRC newspaper did a door-to-door comparison, and basically it saves you about 15 minutes. It's so there's no real time advantage. The train is a lot less hassle in this case. As you said, you can work, read a book, listen to music. You're not crowded in congested airport, as we've all seen in Corona times.
And you don't have to change, because you go to the airport, you go through customs, you have to wait, you get on the plane, you get off, so there's a lot of different steps. And getting in the train for a small journey, it's sitting down, and then the next time you get up, you're at your destination. So if you want to work or rest, it's a longer time of being in one place.
And as said, I mentioned London, so that's already quite an easy journey. You already have good connection, for example, to Brussels, to Paris, to Berlin. What other, for example, if the EU policymakers would be listening, and maybe they are, there is a summit on Saturday about the Green Deal and a just recovery, as they call it. And I believe high-speed rail is part of the solutions being proposed, and possibly in the long future or in the 2025 world, stuff like Hyperloop. What would be, not just looking from the Dutch perspective, but from the European perspective, you would say, Frans Timmermans, he's listening right now. What would be Esther Jacobs' tip based on all your travels and all your experience? Like, Frans, get out of your company car, take the train this summer, experience this trip. And if you want to make sure that Europe is properly connected and one wholesome union, but also a nice travel experience, what connection should he focus on next?
Well, I noticed that a lot of Europeans decided to stay in Europe this summer. So it would be better, of course, if the most extreme parts of Europe would be better connected. And personally, I have a special request, because I just bought a plot of olive orchard and a very old small house in the south of Italy. And it would be great if I could get on a train in the north of Europe and then wake up the next morning near to my Trullo olive orchard house in Italy. And the connections right now, they're there, but you have to change trains. They're very slow. So I think if we could have those bullet trains like they have in Japan, that there would be another advantage, that people wouldn't have to live in like the big expensive cities, but they could travel longer distances by train faster. So they could live further outside of the expensive cities and still be able to do their work. So fast bullet trains connecting the major hubs would be great. And then especially for me, please include a stop in the absolute south of Italy, in Puglia. Thank you very much.
Well, I think Frans made some notes, so hopefully we'll see that coming forward in the coming weeks. And you also, we talked a bit about Hyperloop. For example, the Netherlands has a startup, scale-up, I should say by now, Hard Hyperloop. You have Virgin Hyperloop in the US, if I'm correct. You have Transonic Transportation, a US Hyperloop solution. And there's, I believe, a couple in Germany. And several European are starting to collaborate together. I was at the launch a couple of years ago when Hard was still nice and cuddly. And now they're working on the development center, if I'm correct, in Groningen. And at that time, I realized that I was taking a train from, say, the Amsterdam area to Delft, which was a 30, 45-minute train ride. And for example, if you want to go to Paris, or and there's also some educational facilities there and some business hubs, that I realized when I had to explain to somebody in the train, it's like, well, sir, I was talking to a gentleman who was reading the newspaper. There was an article about Hyperloop. I said, well, the time I have now to explain you Hyperloop by the time I get to Delft is just about as long as it will take you to get to Paris, and you will wake up with your croissant and your fresh Italian espresso. So if you look into the future, because I know that there's some, interestingly, they're not focused first on the Western European countries, but for example, I believe on Slovenia, Austria, and regions like that, to get them better connected to other countries. If you look at that perspective, how realistic do you think that is, and what do you think needs to happen to make that a reality?
I have a weird answer to that because I'm not really much into the technical possibilities of transportation and how to connect countries. But I always, when I travel, by plane, I have this weird experience or weird, how do you say, feeling that basically you step into a box, which is the plane, and then 8 hours later or 12 hours later or 5 hours later, depending where you go, you get out of the box and you're in a different country, different climate, different time zone, different everything, different language, different food. So somehow it feels like getting into a time machine. You get into the time machine in the Netherlands in the rainy summer, with a certain temperature time zone, and you get out in Miami or in Curacao or in Thailand or wherever you're going. And now we're getting in a plane and you're flying and you have the turbulence and the food and the stupid chairs and whatever. But I think one day it will be possible to get into a box, to spend the same amount of time, and then to get out and to be in that place. That's actually what time travel is in the books we read or the movies we see. But if you take away the mode of transportation, whether it's an airplane or a train, what we do basically, we get into a box, we wait a certain amount of time, and when we get out, we're somewhere else. And I think it's very interesting to explore that concept instead of thinking, okay, where do we have train tracks or how fast can a plane go? I think this is a more maybe a philosophical discussion about travel. But this is something I would like to explore. It's really interesting to go into that and to just get into a box, wait a certain amount of time, and then when you get out, you're somewhere else in a different experience. And maybe that different experience is in the same location. Maybe it's a 3D glasses or some virtual experience. But I think this will be possible in the future. Maybe we don't even need to travel anymore. So it doesn't answer your question, but this is my take on it.
Well, that was a very surprising answer, but a very interesting one, I think. And still touching upon a little bit more about this, because I think there is a huge window of opportunity now in Europe to reboot the economy, to reimagine how we travel. I was in a smart mobility conference last week, and for example, there were examples being shared from France, from La Défense, where they've reimagined cities, where they've introduced bike lanes, which was already planned, but now they had the plans ready, they implemented, and all of a sudden everybody was like, hey, I can actually cycle to work. They did very cleverly. They had bike repair shops, beautifully designed, at hubs where people would meet. And all of a sudden people were like, hey, why am I in a congested city by car? And interestingly as well, that was a few days prior, Van Move, the Dutch cycle brand or e-bike brand, had what I thought was a very gentle commercial where they had a beautifully designed car, which I thought was like, oh, Van Move is announcing an all-electric, maybe autonomous car. Apparently, it was supposed to represent the fossil fuel car slowly melting away due to climate change. You saw some congestion in France, probably exhaust fumes, and then that melted the car, turned into water, which could represent climate change, and from that water arose a bike as in the solution. Apparently, threatened the French car industry that intensely, who had a 8 billion euro bailout, that the French regulator decided to ban this because it was controversial and creating a climate of anxiety. I'm not sure if you've seen the commercial, but to me it gave a sense of joy. So and I think this goes for a lot of people, because I hear in the Netherlands bike sales are up, and I think this goes for many countries.
This is one of the hidden opportunities or advantages of the corona crisis, that people bike more. Bike stores are one of the few retail stores that actually are booming. And this is a change that may last. I hope it will last. Like you say, people are rediscovering the pleasure of biking, but also to compare it to being in a traffic jam, to having an expensive car. So I think this is one of the maybe few advantages or opportunities of this Corona crisis.
And I think, for example, also our national team athletes, our Olympic athletes, they, of course, they didn't have to go to the Olympics, which was a disappointment to them. But you see now, I know that some Dutch volleyball players, whereas at a certain point, well, we have some time, they gave free volleyball lessons to kids at schools. I know, for example, that Olympic gold medalist Jochem Uitenhage has a challenge this summer to promote people cycling, and that they use that also to raise money for charity to combat lung disease, Thijslijmziekte in Dutch. And how do you see, what opportunity do you see also with your podium and your following to get people active this summer, to cycle more, to walk more, to get active, as you say, that they travel in their own country, whether it be Netherlands, Germany, Italy, etc., rediscover their own country, and we'll see each other again once the Corona crisis is over. But what would be, for example, your challenge to your audience to get them to go cycling or to take a train and cycle and rediscover places that people have lived close to but hardly know about?
Well, I think it ties into the theme of my speech, see and seize opportunities. So if you cannot go far, stay close. And if either you don't want to spend so much money, or you don't have the money, or you want to save the money, if you leave your house or your apartment and you turn the opposite direction of where you normally go, if you do everything different from what you normally do, you go to a different cafe, you order something different, you meet different people, you change your routine, being very close to where you live will be an adventure. And if you turn on this inspiration switch or filter, you will discover new things and new routines. Try different things. Did you ever try climbing on a climbing wall? Did you ever try an electric step? Did you ever try working out outdoors? Did you ever do a tour in your own city with a tour guide to learn something new? Rent a stand-up paddleboard, go biking. There's apps with biking routes leading you past hidden treasures in your own environment. There's really so much to discover. And normally we don't have the time because we need to work and travel. And I think this Corona crisis is a unique opportunity, like a bubble within our busy lives, that we can use to rediscover ourselves and how we feel when we're not so stressed and having to travel and do all kinds of things. So keep it small, stay close to yourself, close to your normal environment, and see what there is to discover. And then hopefully we'll discover things and habits that we will keep, even though the world may open up again and things may speed up again. And maybe we can stay closer to ourselves and move slower and find inspiration in daily things close to ourselves and within us. That's my wish and my challenge for anybody who's watching this.
And earlier you mentioned your little olive garden, if I say correctly, or your olive grower. Orchard, that's the word I'm looking for, thank you. Well, the Italians are also renowned for the wine, so are our French and Spanish European friends. But they're hurting because a lot of bars have been closed, at least in most countries that I know of. They're reopening, but also restaurants. So a lot of wine, French, Italian, Spanish wine, which would be sold normally in bars and restaurants, has seen a stark decline. I think this goes into the billions of euros and bottles. Do you have any creative ideas to inspire travelers, if they travel, that they travel safely, as said, a bit of a micro travel, or that we find a way that you travel in, for example, you stay in the Netherlands, but where normally you would travel to France or Spain or Italy, but that we find a creative way, because we might not travel there ourselves in person, but that we find a way to bring the French, Italian, and Spanish joie de vivre, and the beautiful wine and the olives there, apart from the commercial initiatives that are there. But how do we, for example, to Dutch campsites, bring this into a European spirit?
I heard that there is a website that buys the stuff from farmers in the south of Europe that they cannot sell: honey, cheese, olives, wine, lemons, whatever, and ships it to the Netherlands and other countries so we can buy directly from the source, help those farmers, but also have those beautiful products with the taste and the energy of the south of Europe. I don't remember the name of the website or the app. It's something with Source, I think, but if you Google, you'll probably find it. And I think if we're not going to spend money on travel as much as we would, then it would be really nice if we would spend this extra money on high quality food that comes from the source, not from a big chain or a supermarket or mass production. But if we buy this from the local farmers through this intermediate party or directly or in some way, then we both, it's a win-win-win situation, right? We help the farmers, we have the nice experience, and we can share it with others. So I think that's a good idea to look up those initiatives to buy directly from the source, those good, beautiful products from the south of Europe and other locations. And also to appreciate, by the way, the local things. There's a lot of local fruit and vegetable that is going to waste because we don't want to eat it, but we can also go to the source and pick our own asparagus or seasonal fruits, strawberries, which is an experience. You help the farmers, you have fresh fruit. It's a nice experience with your kids or doing it by yourself. You could cycle there. So a lot of those initiatives can be connected. Cycling, being outdoors, discovering your local environment, eating good food, helping local farmers. So there's different ways to do it. And I invite everybody to find a way that feels good to them and that matches their life and their expectations.
Well, perhaps to add on that, I've seen there's a couple of farms, even though I live in an urban area, that are relatively close to the urban area, and that people are rediscovering this, and that, as said, as a sort of Saturday getaway with the kids, they go there by bike or with electric car, and they load up with fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy products directly from the farmer, to make sure they also get a fair price, because I think that's a real challenge. And of course, there's also the sustainability challenge, and farmers need to make that transition. But if we do it this way, they get better prices for their products. That allows them to invest in, for example, in solar panels, isolation, to also reduce their costs of electricity and heating, making sure they have a better living wage, and that they're not being, how do you say politely, forced to be turned over to the forces of the big supermarkets and the big retailers. So, for example, do you have any local farmers in your area which you would recommend? Say, like, okay, in, for example, the Utrecht area where we're broadcasting from, around Utrecht, go to these top 3 or these top 5 farmers, and please find more if you can. For example, through the website, if you could later put it up on your website, if you refound the name. But is there anything that comes top of your mind from nice, sustainable, local initiatives where you help the farmers?
Well, I heard that a lot of people during the Corona times, they try to go to local shops. So not just to the big supermarkets, but to go to the butcher, to go to the bakery in their own area, to support the small retailers. And in that way, also supporting the small farmers and the small shops. And there's another thing, again, a little bit different from what you're asking, but there are certain websites who map the edible plants and trees, public plants and trees in an environment. And in Holland, I think it's called plukdestad.nl. And it shows you a map of a city, and there's a cherry tree there. There are strawberries growing there. There's like parsley or whatever herbs growing. So even if you're on a low budget, and also if you're not on a low budget, it's very nice to take your kids or friends on a tour of the city and just pick the fruit and the veggies and the herbs that are available. It's a way to get to know your city, to connect to nature, to collect edible foods that will taste like really different because you picked it yourself and you found it in the city, in nature.
Well, I love it that every time I give you a question, you sometimes give me a nice curveball back, and these are interesting new examples. I think I've heard about them, but they went a bit to the back of my mind. So I want to thank you for sharing that with our audience. Is there any other nice examples, because we still have a bit of time, that you would like to share, or which you're excited about? You mentioned some of local shops that people are visiting. I don't think we need to advertise all the local shops here.
No, just your own local shop. And really the thing is I think the main thing is to slow down, not to think, not to be in a doing mode, to slow down, to go inside, to feel what do you need, what do you want, and act on that. So it will be different for everybody. Lately, I have felt like walking a lot, just to make a lot of steps, to be connected to the earth, to ground in the place that I'm in. And while you're walking, you discover new things. In the street that I walk many, many times, I keep discovering new restaurants, new shops. And because I have time now, because I'm not traveling all the time, I go into the shop and I talk to the store owner, and they point out like their favorite products, or I discover a new restaurant and you discover the people who work there and their, the sources they use, the suppliers they use, and the things they're proud of. So I think the secret is in slowing down, going inside instead of outside, feeling what you need, what your body needs, and just following that flow without planning too much. And right now we have the time to do that, whether you want it or not. Things are slowing down, things are becoming smaller. So if you get a chance to do that for yourself and to ask yourself, what do I need? What do I want? And maybe it's very small. Maybe it's staying at home. Maybe it's, not doing anything. I think this is a unique opportunity to explore that side of life. I'm doing it for myself, and I notice that I tend to fall back into my old patterns. But every time, again, I center, I slow down, I go inside, and I feel, what do I need? What do I want? And it doesn't have to be like that all the time. But if you can get to this point every now and then, and you feel how good it feels and how grounded and centered you feel, at one point you won't need anything else but just being instead of doing and thinking and wanting. That's actually what I'm trying to achieve, and I'm still very far from it. But just being, can you imagine how nice that would be? And what a great example that would be to the people around you who may still be running and chasing and thinking and doing. If we could all just be, what would it mean for the earth, for the environment, for the connection between people? Let's just be.
It's funny you mentioned this, because I rediscovered, I always try to buy local, and I think I've done a bit more than I normally would. And gave me a good excuse to do so. And I also like to talk to the shop owners and also hear what they're, where they source their products, how you can help them change. What are, for example, a lot of shop owners are rediscovering now that apart from office rent or the office building, the shop building, that the energy cost is a big part of their fixed cost, which is normally a bill that comes in, and they're just, which is very understandable, busy buying their products, making sure they sell enough, that they've set the right price. But for example, for big office buildings of 800 square meters, for example, in the Netherlands, we waste 250 million cubic of meters of gas per year, 150 million euros per year. So there's your business case, and 450,000 tons of CO2. How do I know this? I know this from a startup which will probably be featuring tomorrow on the Green Deal stage, Hero Balancer, and they have a very clever way with sensors to make sure that, for example, in schools, which a lot of teachers don't realize, which is very understandably because they're busy managing 30 or plus running kids running around, but there is literally money, energy, and carbon greenhouse gases going up in smokes, if you will, due to this. And as said, on an annual basis in the Netherlands, this alone is 150 million euros and 250 million cubic meters of gas. And that's when there are little to no people. So this is not during regular operation. This is the waste. For example, do you talk to your shop owners about that, how they can make changes like that so they have those better margins, that they can compete better with the bigger supermarkets and they have a fairer product price?
To be fair, no, I don't talk about these things. What I try to do is I try to share my enthusiasm. So if I go to a local store or bar and I like something, I share it so that more people know about this and more people will visit the shop. And I think it's necessary to look at problems and to find solutions for problems. But my added value, my strength is to share enthusiasm. So what I do, there's a cafe around the corner. They have great banana cakes. So every time I go there, I post on social media about the great banana cake. That's my contribution to getting more traffic and to sharing my enthusiasm for this place. And what I also do sometimes is pay it forward. So last time I was in this cafe, I decided to give away a cup of coffee and a piece of this wonderful banana cake to the next person. So I just posted that the next person mentioning my name would get a free coffee and banana cake. That's my way of dealing with this. And I even took it to an extreme, because last week I turned 50 and I decided to give away my best work for 50 days. So I think there's still about 15 days left. So every day for the past 35 days, I've been giving away a present, a book, a workshop, a one-on-one session, and I'll keep doing this. So if people want to join, if you go to my website, estherjacobs.info/birthday, you can sign up. You can let me know what you're interested in: book writing, location independent living, freedom. There's some topics you can choose from. There's even a survey where you can pick one of the 50 gifts. Every day I pick a winner and I give away one of the gifts. And I hope that people will pay it forward, that they will also share something they're good at, something they've produced, offer one of their services, and also help others like I do with the places that I go to. If I like a restaurant, if I like a cafe, if I like a certain recipe, if I like the atmosphere, if I met a nice person, I share it. That's my contribution. And if that's your strength as well, I invite you to do that as well. If your strength is to solve problems or to go into the details or to be very technical, please do that and help shop owners and other people in that way. And if we all contribute in our own way, using our own strength, it means that you give away something that doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take any trouble or energy because it comes natural. And if we all realize what we are good at and share that, then I think we are paying it forward and we are making the world better for everybody.
Well, I think that's a very inspiring example, and I think it's a good reminder. I've done that myself in the past, but I think
or energy because it comes natural. Oh, what's happening? We all realize what we are good.
I think a lot of people are rediscovering themselves, rediscovering, as I said, their local shops. I heard that in Amsterdam, people have been drinking coffee for their neighbors for 20 or 30 years, which they've never properly met because there was always tourists in front of their nice historic canal building, even small apartments. And then I'm like, hey, so who do I live next to? So putting this challenge forward in your spirit. So you've, congratulations on your birthday, by the way. So you have decided to give this away for 50 days. What is something that you would find inspiring to receive or put forward that other people could do, or something that would be of value to you to help you further grow? Or I think this is also part because you, as you mentioned, want to leave the world in a better place than you found it. So how would you challenge others to do something similar, or something you would receive yourself?
Well, keep it very small, very close to yourself. So, find out something that you're good at, that other people ask you for your opinion, for your help, and share something like that. If people like that you're a good listener, offer a session where you listen to them. If you're a problem solver, offer to solve a problem. If you're a good cook, next time you cook something, just post online that you have an extra portion that you're willing to share, to give to somebody. Have a coffee with your lonely neighbor. Just whatever you have an abundance of, share it. Because if you have money and you give away money, then you have less money. But if you have energy, or you have stories to share, or you have love to give, if you give away, it doesn't become less, it only becomes more because it's shared. So find out what that unlimited source is that you have, and start sharing it if you don't already do that. And it's different for everybody. And it may seem like insignificant to you because you have so much of it. But this very thing that drives you may be very valuable and precious to somebody else. Maybe attention, it may be words, it may be a physical thing. Everybody has something. So pay it forward.
I think that that's a very nice example. For example, touching upon my own experience, I've had the privilege that a couple of senior entrepreneurs early on in my career offered their help, or they liked what I was doing, and they sort of mentored me or introduced me to places which really helped me get further ahead. So I would challenge everybody listening to do that in their own personal life as well, especially now people have a bit more time. And since we also have a large millennial and Generation Z audience, which is part of the philosophy of Campus Party, normally you would have tens of thousands of young, ambitious students from all walks of life, from all kinds of study backgrounds, but also a lot of tech and possible future tech entrepreneurs. But for example, I think also a lot of STEM students. What I've been thinking about, and maybe you have some ideas, or people in the audience, are secondary schools, not just in the Netherlands, but all across Europe, all across the world, have had a different way of their education. And some of the theory-based learning, which they normally would have, has been online, which in some cases has worked very well. In some cases, that meant that people have run into a deficit compared to their peers. But I think there's also an opportunity for a lot of technical students or people interested in technology. And then I mean the broader scale. So for example, I know that there is a foundation where you can learn to build a small electric car for €1,000. Not a family car, but as in a way to get used to the technology. If you're 16 or 18, or you're TU Delft, TU Eindhoven, TU Twente, or whether you're, Stanford, but also those are, of course, the household names. But this, of course, goes for every technical student who thinks technology is interesting, who wants to learn how to be part of that new future. How would you encourage them to reinvent themselves, find the knowledge to do this, and start a challenge like this, and start developing their skills, which we really need for the Green New Deal and for solving climate change, for example?
Yeah. Well, that way, online is great because there's a lot of information available online, and YouTube has a lot of manuals. So anybody who's ever manufactured a 3D printer, an electric car, like you're saying, anything technical, website design, you can find anything there. And the good thing about the online information that is available, you can pick the best one. Like the Khan Academy has collected all the lectures from the best teachers in the world about any topic. So instead of local schools now having to produce their own online lessons, which they're not used to producing online lessons, they don't necessarily have the best teachers. And if a teacher is very good, he may not be very good online. So instead of schools thinking local, oh, we have to create a lesson, why don't you use what's already available? And then the resources you have, you can use to guide students through this, to help students either who have difficulty understanding the basic lessons, or students that are very good in something by providing them extra information and challenging them to learn more. For example, I have been learning Italian for the past 3 months just with the app Duolingo, just 5 minutes a day. And in 3 months, I've built up like a basis that when I go back to Italy, I can understand better what's happening, and I can, start to talk to people, to have a conversation. So online, everything you need is already there. So if you find something good, share it, and don't try to create something if it's already there. Use what is already there and add onto it by connecting things, by making a sequel, by finding a new way to apply something, and by connecting people. So I know there's a lot of kids who are into programming, for example, and if you put them together, they can create something together. We don't have to design a program for them. They are smart enough that if we put them together, they will develop something based on YouTube videos they've seen, based on what they've heard or read somewhere. So the only thing we need to do is be smart and not thinking that we have to reinvent the wheel. It's already out there somewhere. So let's connect to what's already there, and let's connect people to do what they're good at.
Okay, I think we need to start wrapping up. Perhaps as a final question, you mentioned your Italian. Would you like to say a few words in Italian in closing, and perhaps combining with the earlier question/challenge to, for example, Italian students interested in STEM, so science, technology, I forgot what the E stands for, and math, and at the Politecnico di Milano, for example?
Grazie mille. My Italian is not so developed yet, but I think what I'm going to say is very universal. Whatever you want to do is possible. No excuses.
Okay, I think on that note, I would really like to thank you for taking out your time and sharing your experiences and your knowledge and your creative ideas with our audience. As people might know, this session is being recorded and is being broadcasted on YouTube. So if you might be, for example, now, I'm not sure if it's sunny outside right now, if you're enjoying either the rain or the sun, and you come across this talk later on, feel free to connect with us through Campus Party, or feel free to reach out to Esther. Esther, perhaps in closing, you might want to say your website again so people know where to find you. And then on that note, I would thank you very much for your time, and I would encourage people to get in touch with you, and perhaps also make use of your great birthday offer and share some of the lessons there with the time still remaining.
Yeah, it's very easy if you want to get in touch with me. My website is estherjacobs.info. So not .nl or .com, .info. estherjacobs.info. And on estherjacobs.info/birthday, you'll find my birthday offer. And feel free to connect on social media, to send me messages, questions. I'm always willing to help. And I'm of the opinion that if I share my light, my energy, and I enable other people to do so as well, they will also enable other people. So it's always paying it forward. Sharing is caring, right? So I hope to see you online or during one of my workshops, or maybe even a writing retreat where I can help you write your book in 1 week, because writing a book is also a way to share your message and to inspire other people. So whatever works best for you, just do it.
Well, on that note, I might take you up on that, because I've had a couple ideas on that in my mind. So maybe paired with your birthday offer, that would be, I think, very inspiring, and I would encourage everyone who feels the same to get in touch with you. Again, thank you for your time and sharing this with our global audience. And I hope to see you soon again. And as we say at Campus Party, let's reboot the world.
Yes, and thanks for moderating.
It was a pleasure.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you for the audience and for the questions. Mike Gladys, Esther Luck, and some of the other people, Hans, who've asked questions. And again, feel free to reach out through either Campus Party or through estherjacobs.info. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.